Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes soloing the Stalker. We are level 47, and we finally have some enhancement sets, which I will show you in a bit. We're on a mission for Harvey Mailer. I've done a couple of story arcs and stuff. We're actually quite a ways into 47 because I was um, trying to get enough merits to get those last merits I needed for the enhancement set. So we have our enhancement sets now. I've changed some of this up here, so let me show you what we've got. We have 5 sets now, guys. 2 of them are the ATOs. That's what I was saving the reward merits up for. I got about halfway through level 47. I finally got them. The 2 sets are the Stalker's Guile and Assassin's Eclipse. Now, what these guys do, because their set bonuses are so nice, the reason I put them on here was these were 2 of 3 powers with Shadow Maul that only had a single accuracy enhancement on them. When you put the sets on, the accuracy, if you look on the second line here, goes way up. 64% here and 64% here. And these are now the equivalent of 2 and 3 accuracy enhancements on these powers. Assassin's Eclipse starts with a bonus, a base of 1.2. So it was already kind of in the lead, which is why I only had 1 accuracy on it. But I've moved our missions up to +3, and as you'll see, +3s, we have 95% to hit, basically on every one of these powers except Shadow Maul, without aim on. And with aim on, they're all 95. And then we have in the upper 80s to mid 80s to maybe 79 or whatever with Shadow Maul against +4s, which we will see in +3 missions. The other set I put on here, somebody mentioned that Touch of the Nickness is pretty cheap. I think it has cost me about 5 million, 6 million total to get. We have 50 million left out of the 60 million we started of after everything we did. The recipes aren't that expensive, but I ended up having to buy a few 400 or 500,000 um, materials like invention, salvage to craft these things, and then they cost a certain amount to do. The craft itself is about 500,000. I also looked into just buying the actual enhancements. The total cost would have been slightly more to buy the actual enhancements, so I bought the recipes. Then in energy drain, I thought power transfer was going to be super expensive. It was about the same price as Touch of the Nickness. I actually wrote this one down. It cost me 4 million to. I bought one of them and one of the enhancers, the heal one, heal self, chance to heal self. That was actually pretty inexpensive. Um, so I bought the heal, or I was. It was expensive, but it was cheaper than buying the recipe or something. It cost me about 1 million each. Um, I think so. Let's see. I bought 4 recipes, 1 salvage, and 1 enhancer, and I had one already. The total was 4 million to buy everything, and then to do the crafting. The total cost on top of that was another couple million. So it cost me a grand total of 6 million to get this thing slotted. And I think Siphon Life was about 4 or 5. Then one of our wonderful audience members bought me this, sent me this one. So this is Doctored Wounds. Now with all of this together, we actually have a really nice amount of bonuses to our accuracy. All of these come from the various bonuses. If we take off focused accuracy here, you can see these are the 4 sets that give us bonuses to accuracy. And then there are a couple of sets that give us bonus to recharge time. We have other bonuses obviously as well, but because of this, we have a total accuracy with FA running of 1.54, not including any enhancements, right? And then the enhancements are on top of that, and we have a recharge time bonus of 50%. So if you want to see how this kind of affects things, if we look at the easy way to do this is build up is a 46, almost 46-second recharge, but if I click it, you'll see that it's going to tell me it's recharging in 37 seconds, and that's this, that the global recharge bonus time to all of our powers. So this is really nice, guys, and it makes our characters super effective. +3s are now like +1s to us, and +4s are like 2s, kind of. almost. The only reason I don't already have it on +4 missions is I haven't yet faced an elite boss, and I'm not quite sure whether we're going to be able to take +3 and +4 elite bosses. We're just going to have to see whether I'm going to need to regularly drop down the mission difficulty to a +1 or +2 just to get the elite boss and then push it back up. I just don't know what the 2 hits going to be like on them, and I don't know how much damage they're going to do to me. So we'll see. As we go, what I'd like to do is talk today about the health benefits, both mental and physical health benefits of hobbies that we love. This comes by way of a wonderful channel that I discovered through my interest in the wargaming hobby. It's somebody who doesn't play the types of games that I've been playing, which is hexes and cardboard counters. He plays miniatures war games, and his channel name is Miniature Adventures. He's got a wonderful accent, I think Australian. Super interesting guy. I don't generally watch the stuff about his games because I'm not playing those sorts of games, but every once in a while he puts out just a general video about the hobby of gaming generally and wargaming specifically, and about doing miniatures and stuff. And I don't watch the miniature stuff, but I watch some of the more general stuff. And he has this video that he put out. His initial point, and I've done this with my channel as well, is he doesn't talk real world politics on his channel, right? He talks the politics of the game, right? This is the Napoleonic War, and we're going to talk about the politics of the two armies that are facing each other. That's cool. But he doesn't talk about present day, what's going on in the news, doesn't talk about it at all. And he was talking about kind of why he does this. And it's not just because he doesn't want to have a bunch of that gunking up his channel, but he talked about the hobby and the health benefits of the hobby. And that's for him, the miniatures hobby. But I think all of us have our hobbies, and our hobbies are really important to us. And those hobbies can lead to real, tangible health benefits, which is what he was talking about. So, one of the things that he mentioned is that when he's in the room where he builds his miniatures and scenery and stuff, he's got like a little, workshop. He said nothing comes in here from the outside. He said, I don't listen to the news. I'll just listen to music while I'm in here painting or building a piece of scenery. He said, I don't think about any of the stuff that's going on. It's a way for me to get away from it all. And he said there are all these mental health benefits that we talk about with these things, right, with doing that. But he also talked about his physical health. And I guess he has hypertension, right, high blood pressure. And one of the things, oh jeez, all the bonuses, and I still can't stop from rolling 97s against these guys. He talked about how, out of curiosity, he, and again, this, by the way, this isn't medical. I'm not giving you anybody medical advice, guys. I'm not. Nor was he. He was just talking about his own experience. Can you believe the miss streaks with 85% to hit? 3 misses out of like 6 shots. He said that he got the idea because he feels so much more at peace in his little workshop that he got the idea to check his blood pressure. And he checked his blood pressure before he went in there and worked on his stuff. And they went in and worked on his stuff for a while, and at the end of his session, he checked his blood pressure again, and it had come down by like 10 points. Right? It had come down into the nice healthy area where it's supposed to be, where the doctor wants it. And he did this a few times, and he realized that when he was in this room, in his essentially his happy place, his blood pressure had come way down. So he said it's not only a mental benefit, it's a physical benefit for him. Now, I'm not arguing that everybody's hobby is going to do things for their blood pressure. Talk to your doctor about stuff like that. I'm not giving medical advice. But I definitely know that the same thing is true for me when I'm, stressed out or whatever. Seeking shelter in my hobbies definitely helps. And the most, the example that stands out the most for me is during the pandemic, right? In March, of 2020, you can go back and look at the videos I posted. I was doing Tiger Strike on Rebirth, and I found solace in that game. That was, that when the pandemic first started, there were a lot of unknowns that, 6 years later, looking back, we can easily say with 2020 hindsight, well, you shouldn't have been worried about that. They shouldn't have been worrying about this other thing, etc. But back when it was happening, there were a lot of unknowns. We just did not know what was going to happen. At first, people thought that the lockdowns were only going to last a couple of weeks. In fact, if you look at the news articles from back then, if any are still easily accessible, there was this saying called 2 weeks to bend the curve, right? This idea of the curve of infection. And if everybody just locks themselves in their house and doesn't go outside for 2 weeks, the disease won't be able to spread and we'll be able to bend it back down, right? And it'll help. And well, I don't know what happened, but that didn't, right? 2 weeks turned into a month, turned into 2 months, turned into like almost a whole year, right? And it was only after the vaccines came out that they started saying to people, okay, we're going to open things back up. So nobody knew how long this was going to be. At first, we thought it was short. And then, as time went on, it started to seem like it was never going to end. And there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of uncertainty around just how dangerous the disease was, how easy it was to be caught, what types of things could cause you to catch it and what couldn't. There were all kinds of myths about it, to be honest, that I don't know if they've ever been debunked, but they were certainly prevalent at the time. And it was definitely an anxiety-inducing period of time for just about everybody in that first year. And so one way that I was able to deal with it was to just turn on City of Heroes and play and forget about it. Another way I was able to deal with it is my group was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and although I didn't want to be the DM, I wanted somebody else to do it. I was kind of glad in the end that I did, because the people who were playing with me, they really only had to think about the campaign and the characters and the world once every 2 weeks. But for me, right, I had to think about it in between times because I was building dungeons and designing monsters and boss fights and stuff like that. So I spent many a night with my head buried in Dungeons and Dragons and Foundry VTT and map making and designing encounters and stuff. And when I was doing those things, I was thinking about those things, and I really wasn't thinking about all of the pandemic problems. And so, just want to acknowledge what Miniature Adventures was saying. And I've had many times in my life, both before and since, where I have been worried about stuff, stressed out about stuff, anxious about things. And it is definitely the case that my hobbies have been a bit of a shelter from that. And so what he was saying to his audience was, give yourself the grace and the time and the a little bit of funds if you can afford it, and if it's not too expensive. We're not saying to spend thousands of dollars on your hobby, but if you like to paint miniatures and you want to buy a little pack of 6 or 7 miniatures and spend some weeks painting them, and you want to buy a few paints, and assuming you can afford that, go ahead and let yourself do it, because there are all kinds of both mental and physical health benefits that you can get from allowing yourself to indulge a little bit in your hobbies. In fact, I would argue it's not indulgence, it's a necessity. At least for me, if I don't do some hobby stuff at least sometimes each week, I start to get really frazzled. And this is one of my hobbies, and this is why I do this. I love playing City of Heroes. I like chatting with you guys. I like reading the comments on my channel, as few as there are. I enjoy each one of them. I always answer them. I answer just about every one of them. And I like interacting, but I also like just being in the headspace of City of Heroes. So, what I would say is whatever your hobby is, folks, let yourself enjoy it. Spend time with it. Um, obviously you don't want to do it to the neglect of important things, right? I'm not arguing that you should neglect your job or anything like that, but um, but I think we should make room for our hobbies, make time, make room in our lives because they're actually so important. And again, I don't make any medical claims. I have no idea, but I know that there have been lots of times when I have been really in a bad place one way or another, and just turning on my favorite computer game or getting involved in some other hobby. I was doing model railroading for a while, and I was painting stuff and building scenery for that too, and even just going online shopping for the next locomotive and stuff. That again made me sometimes get through some very difficult times, and I think our hobbies do that for us a lot. Are you guys seeing all the times I've missed Assassin's Strike? This is like the fourth time in just the 10 or 15 minutes I've been playing these missions. This mission. It's ridiculous. Um, and 95% every time, too. Um, but yeah, I mean, the the ability to kind of escape into our hobby is a really important one, and we shouldn't take it lightly. I want to point out what just happened there. I was planning to just hit him with a crit, and we used Assassin's Strike. Why? Well, because we went back into hide. Why? Because we have this power, this thing, Stalker's Guile, and on the last enhancement here is a chance to hide 4 times a minute, no more than that. When this power executes, there's a chance it will hide us back. I didn't even notice it had done that, but it's really nice because it gets you back into hide. And if you remember back a number of episodes ago, I was talking about how there was a debate on the help channel as to whether a stalker should bother taking placate, and the general consensus was no, because you can get that enhancement and it will auto hide you. I now completely disagree. I didn't really agree with it before, but I now completely disagree with it. It's a really cool enhancement, but it's utterly random whether that thing's going to hide you or not. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. There's some small percentage chance. And so, um, what I like about placate is I can choose when it happens. You can't choose when the other power, when the enhancement does it. Now, the Assassin's Strike, that enhancer, instead of a chance to hide, gives this one a build up, a chance to recharge. So if you see this thing being at like 20 seconds and then I hit Assassin's Strike and all of a sudden this recharge, that's why. Missed again. Do you see all of these 98s and 7s and stuff I'm rolling? This has got to be the 5th time this mission. It's absurd. No, come on, build up. Didn't let me interrupt. And there we go. So yeah, go ahead and post your comments if you've noticed in your own life when you dive into your hobbies that it makes everything better. That's what I've seen. It makes everything better. It just makes every other part of my life work better. And there's the recharge on buildup, maybe. I don't know if it actually was already recharged or not. But you see where it said Assassin's Mark over my head? Alright, we're just going to get rid of this guy so he doesn't pull his stupid cannon. Then we can placate the gunslinger. And those guys, 50th level. Oh, there's 2 elevators we have to go down. Okay. We need to recover the bands of Shu. This is actually, you can get these as a vendor item on the pay to win vendor. Oh no, no, no. That's the sands of Mew, not the bands of Shu. I confused that. Strike that. Never mind. Lots of gunslingers here. So yeah, if you see me rehide immediately, that's because of Smite having that ATO on it. And if you see build up suddenly recharge after an Assassin Strike, it'll be because that triggered. It's only got a 4% chance to trigger, so you're not going to see it a lot. Once a mission or something, it might happen. Now we do need to improve Shadow Maul, so one of the next things I'm going to want to do is going to be to put a PP AOE like multi-strike or something on Shadow Maul. Oh shoot, I wasn't hidden. So the way I know that these auto turrets are an absolute waste, they're completely nothing but an annoyance, is that I can utterly ignore them and it makes no difference. I feel like if I'm a designer, those things either need more teeth, do more damage or something, or they need to be taken out of the game. I don't like the idea of something that can't really do anything to you as part of the game, right? Just like the rubbles and stuff like that. I mean, they're utterly ineffective. They can't do anything to you, so why are they there? All right, when I'm GMing, I don't put in monsters that I think are going to have no effect on the party, right? I would not, unless it was for flavor or something, I would not purposely have the party fight a small group of goblins when they're 30th or 20th level or something, or 15th level. Because why? The goblins can't do anything to them. It's not like Savage Worlds where anybody can get a lucky shot, roll exploding dice, and do 2 wounds or 3 wounds to a high level PC, right? Like D&D, you literally can't do that because the high level PCs have like 130 hit points and the goblins can only do like 8. So unless you're fighting 30 goblins, they have no chance against you, and there's no point to fighting them. One of the reasons I like Savage Worlds is because you could get taken out by a small child with a spoon if that small child open ends enough. It's unlikely, but it can happen. And I think that's going to actually help me try to do my climactic scene in my campaign, which is going to be them traveling into the hunting grounds to do a ritual to stop Chaos. And Chaos is going to be sending her forces at them. I was just thinking about this last night, actually, while I was trying to fall asleep in bed. I don't know why I was thinking about this, but I guess because I was working a little bit on the campaign last evening. But I think that one of the things I want to do is try to call back from a lot of the stuff that they've experienced with Chaos And so my thought is when they're in the hunting grounds trying to do the ritual to seal chaos back in hell, I'm going to have one person do the actual dramatic task that is the ritual. And then I'm going to tell the other three, you can either, we're going to go into like rounds, and the person doing the ritual, who I'm assuming is going to be the Blessed, is going to have to get like 8 tokens in 5 rounds or something. So they're going to have to get success with the raise a few times. And I'm going to give the PCs the option, other PCs, of either supporting that or participating in the combat that's going to be going on, right? So the Chaos is going to send her minions to try and stop the ritual, and the posse is going to be there to try and protect the Blessed or whoever's doing the huckster, whoever's doing the ritual. And so you can either support this guy, or you can try to do regular combat against the minions of Chaos. And so I'm going to have a bunch of these followers of Chaos in there, and my thought was maybe I can have them face a bunch of the creatures that they faced against Chaos in this campaign. So Walking Dead, yes, but also like Manitous and maybe an antlion, because they fought one of those, the giant antlion, and some other stuff too. And so I don't know. I have to think about exactly how I'm going to do it, but my idea was you're going to have to fight like some witches, because they're not going to fight Mina, she's dead, but they can fight a couple of other witches. They can fight some weird scientists who also worked for her, and some hucksters that were working for her. So the idea is that you bring back for an encore some of the major players that were part of the struggle to get to this point. I think that could be really cool. Now, what I haven't worked out is exactly the mechanics of the combat slash dramatic task. I remember when I was running one in, I think I got this idea from Matt Colville, but when I was running portal closing slash combat, so it was like a skill challenge to close the portal, but then also combat, what I told the players was they could use a bonus action to try and close the portal, and their regular action for the combat. So maybe what I could do, as I think about this, is these guys love to use speed to go twice around. What I could say is either, okay, if you're going twice around, you can do one combat and one dramatic task support. Something like that. Or I could say to them, if you want to use a multi-action to support with a dramatic task, it won't cost you the -2. That would maybe encourage them to do it. But I think because they have speed, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say you can do one or the other. Or if somebody casts speed, or if you want to do a multi-action, you can do both, but it's at -2 per action. And then let them figure out if they want to use speed or not. They can do it themselves, right? I mean, they're smart players. They'll figure it out. They're super smart. I still need to figure out too how I'm going to deal with if they wipe against the Devil Bowls, which I think is going to be the next session. Oh, these guys are going to stink to fight. All right, let's fight him and then we'll get out. I'm not going to fight all the auto turrets. I'll fight the guys, but like the auto turrets can go suck a lemon. As, what did Bart say that one time? Bart Simpson? Somebody, I can't remember who said it. Go suck a lemon. I like that. It's a lot less rude than some of the other things you could tell people to go suck. Neither of these guys summoned? I'm surprised. And our recharge on the heal power is now once a minute. If you look at the actual power, it says 1 minute. I wonder how come it's not being affected by this. It should be faster than that. Okay, let's head out. Okay. Bring the bands of Shu into contact with a powerful primitive creature. Defeat all creatures in cave. Boy, these missions, they like doing defeat all. Oh, 49 seconds. Okay, that's why. So it's a minute recharge, but it's giving us 49. Yeah, they've been... before this I did To Save 1,000 Worlds. And that is a maddening story arc where like every other, not every other mission, but about half the missions are just go click one glowy inside this mission. You know, for a stalker it's like 2 minutes. Less, 30 seconds. You go in, find the glowy, click, come out. And the other half of them were giant outdoor maps with defeat everybody. No real purpose behind it, just defeat everybody. I prefer if there are some goals, not just one, and you need to click on or deal with all of them. Where's the train station? Did I miss it? I totally did. You need to deal with all of the glowies, like 6 of them or whatever. But if you do, that's the end of the mission. You don't have to click, you don't defeat every single minion. Because defeating every minion on the map is just... And for people who say, well, I like to do that, that's fine. If you want to defeat everybody on the map, go for it. But you shouldn't have to defeat everybody on the map when you're actually looking for a way to ignite the bands of Shu or whatever. Then how does defeating everybody on the map do that? It doesn't. Right? There's going to be a glowy I have to click. Up, Devouring Earth. These guys are kind of nasty on +3 sometimes. But I think we should be okay as a Stalker because the biggest nastiness is those stupid, the guys that put down the cairns. And we should be able to one-shot them or nearly one-shot them. So that should not be a problem. I hope. Razor Vines. So you can see up here, we have 100% to hit on everything but, well, 95% on everything but Shadow Maul, which is 85. Where did that guy go? Oh, here he is. This is one of these weird missions where the individuals are like separated from each other and you get 1 and 2 mob spawns. Which is not standard. It's supposed to be 3 mobs per spawn, right? If it's minions. And there's a dead end. See, I was working on my Deadlands next session, and I think they're going to fight the Los Diablos, the Devil Bulls. I don't know where, but I'm guessing it'll be in some place where they're sleeping, because the Devil Bulls show up at 12:13 a.m. on the 5th night after the first time you heard them. And so I'm guessing, because they're supposedly planning to head to St. Louis, but I'm not sure exactly when they're going to go, because they just need to get there by the 22nd or something. I'm assuming that they will be in, where is it, St. Louis? I want to say Kansas City, but no, St. Louis. And I assume that by midnight they'll be going to bed. Although maybe one of them will be gambling down in the saloon. Like, I don't know. But I sort of assume that they're going to do that. And why are they hitting me so much? So I figure probably the Bulls are going to attack them kind of in their hotel room. Man, what a long aggro range. That's probably actually a good thing, because it means that they're not going to all be together. They'll be in presumably 4 separate rooms, or 3, maybe 2 in one room and 1 in each of the others or something. Like, I'm not sure how they're going to do it. But then they're going to hear the Bulls. The Bulls are going to show up, and basically one will pop into each, sort of smash their way into each hotel room. And now the players are a little separated, right? And this might be an effective way to challenge them, because what they've been able to do is to just be a really effective team, which is, like, I'm nothing against that, right? That's what players are supposed to do. And as I always say, I have really good players, and they know how to be an effective team and use teamwork, and they do it really well. And so what often happens is they know there's a battle coming. They're able to plan and prep, and in the first round they do their buffs and everything else, and then they're like golden for the rest of the battle. And they're able to do it because they're all together, so they can cast their little AoE buffs and stuff. But if they're isolated in different rooms in different floors of the hotel or something, or different parts of the second floor, or what have you, then they won't necessarily be able to start the combat pre-buffed and ready to go. They're not going to be able to plan it out the way they do in a lot of their other combats that they've done. And I think that's actually been one of the problems I've had. See, another defeat all. Oh, I hate this map. One of the problems I've had as a GM trying to deal with them is that the players have been really good about planning stuff out, and I haven't really put onto them encounters suddenly that they couldn't plan for, right? And some of this is their own way of maneuvering, kind of maneuvering their circumstance so that they don't have that happen, right? They don't have to get, like, surprised and stuff like that, because they've kind of rigged the game so that that doesn't happen to them, which is, again, smart gameplay, nothing against it. But in order to challenge them, which has been hard for me to do, I think it may help to have them essentially not necessarily taken by surprise, but taken in a situation where they can't do extensive prep and planning, right? They're going to get into the hotel room, they're going to go to sleep, presumably, and then at 12:13 a.m., I'm going to say, you hear this rumbling noise, and it's super loud this time, much louder than it's ever been. The walls are shaking, the mirrors clattering, books are falling off the shelves, And then, boom, stuff smashes through the walls. And in each individual room, there's this giant bull snorting fire and ready to attack them. And I think that that might throw them off their game a little bit. The other thing I'm trying to figure out is whether I want to have the individual Devil Bulls go as a collective group. They're all wild cards. They technically should get their own draw card for each round. So that means we're going to be drawing 8 cards per round, which is a lot. We're going to get through the whole deck and get jokers out and stuff, which is kind of cool. That's cool in combat. But I think if I make them all go at different times, one of the problems I've had with the players is just straight up luck. If they're fighting a group of enemies that are grouped together and go on the same initiative order, right? Then what's happened a couple of times is they've just been lucky enough that they go, like 3 of them go before the villains can even take an action, right? And so that gives them a huge advantage. But if there are 4 of them and 4 Devil Bulls, and the Devil Bulls each get their own initiative card, the odds are some of those bulls are going to go pretty early in the combat. Now, I mean, I could still get unlucky and draw a bunch of 2s and 3s for the bulls, and they could draw aces and jacks, but I think there's a much lower probability of them being able to just luck their way into, we're gonna do all this crap before the enemy can even move, and we're gonna do it twice because we're on speed, right? And the spell speed, right? So yeah, I think that might remedy some of the problems that I feel like we've had in terms of me being able to challenge the players, right? Because the players will be unable to prep, and they're not going to be close enough, I think, to each other that they're going to be able to. Oh man, look at all this. They're not going to be close enough to each other that they're going to be able to just throw all these buffs out on the first round. They're going to have to get near each other, right? If the range is smarts and you have D8 smarts, it's 8 grid squares. So if we're more than 8 grid squares apart, you're not going to be able to get everybody in your AoE radius, right? So I think that will make it harder for them because they won't be able to do all of their like standard operating procedures to lead into a battle or at the very top of a battle. And I think that that'll make it more challenging. So hopefully it will. I want it to be a tough fight. I don't necessarily... No, I didn't mean to do that. I still one-shot him. That's good. I don't necessarily... I certainly don't want to like defeat them, but I want this to be the toughest battle they've had. And we really haven't had too many tough battles lately, so hopefully they haven't gotten lulled into a sense of overconfidence. One of the other things I was thinking about was that the players all have conviction. So in Savage Worlds, a conviction is a token that sits on your character sheet. If it's in person, you give like little poker chips to people or something. It persists across sessions until you use it. So it's sitting on them. Most of them have they all have 1 conviction because they just defeated a major boss. So I give them a conviction when they do that. But one of them has like 3. And so once you start the conviction, you can refresh it with bennies. And once you start the conviction, you can add a d6 to every trait and damage roll. So it's really good, right? You can keep doing it as long as you pay bennies to refresh it. So in this fight, it would absolutely behoove them to trigger the conviction and get those bonuses. Without it, they're going to have a really hard time doing any damage to the Devil Bulls because they have 20 toughness, 8 of which is armor. They could try to do some armor piercing stuff, but it's going to be very difficult to damage something with a 20 toughness when you're only rolling 3d6 of damage, which is what you're going to roll for most cases when you got a hit with a raise. So even if they can get a hit with a raise, which they might be able to do probably half the time because they have good attack skills and stuff, even when you have that, if you're maxing out at nearly 18, it's not exactly because of you can get exploding dice, but if you're most of the time maxing out around 18, how are you going to defeat something with a 20 toughness? Even if you have a little bit of armor piercing, 2 or 3, you're not going to get through, right? And so they're really going to probably need the conviction to do the damage, right? Their regular attack, if they hit with a raise, will just about get to around the toughness of these monsters unless they get a really good exploding die roll result. And so if they have that conviction, that extra d6, that'll be the damage they actually do past their toughness. And so it would behoove them to turn on their conviction. And I think that if they had a chance to prep for this fight and kind of knew what was coming, they absolutely would turn on conviction as soon as the fight happened. If they had any idea what was coming their way, they would absolutely be doing that the first round. But they don't know how tough the Devil Bulls are. Well, most of them don't. I think the new girl does, because she watched the Wildcards Deadlands show, and that was the TPK. She knows that these bulls wiped the party. She doesn't know how to do damage to them because that party never figured it out, and they just died. I don't think they ever wounded or damaged the bulls in any major way. That shows how powerful those bulls are. And but they didn't have conviction in the older Savage Worlds rules. So with conviction, they might have been able to do it because you're doing an extra d6 of damage every time, right? And so if they knew how tough these guys were, which they're not going to know at first, the probably right move to do is to turn on that conviction in the first round and try to keep it active with your bennies. If you have enough bennies, right? Now they have to have enough bennies to do that. Don't know what their benny situation is going to be like at the time the battle starts. I don't know how soon the battle is going to start in the session. I hope it doesn't start too late because we're never going to finish it. So I don't know, but yeah, the wisest thing to do would be to turn that conviction on and leave it on if you can and keep refreshing it, because these guys are so tough it's going to be almost impossible to do much damage to them without the conviction. But they won't know that before they take a few swings at these guys, right? So it may be a round or two before they realize, right? Because the first time you hit a thing, okay, if you do 17 damage to it and I say it doesn't do anything to it, it's time to start worrying. But if you roll 6 damage or 8 damage and I say it doesn't do anything to it, you don't realize potentially how much damage this thing can take before you can actually hurt it, right? And so it's possible we could go a couple of rounds before the players realize, oh, we're not going to be able to damage these things without conviction. And that also kind of plays in my favor in terms of giving them a hard mission to do, a difficult challenge. These bulls do D12 plus 4 base damage, because they have D12 strength plus 4 strength, and they do strength plus D12 damage when they gore you with their horns. They have really high fighting too. I think they have a D12 in fighting, so they're probably going to hit, right? I don't think anybody has a parry over like a 7 or so. So they're probably going to hit, and if they hit with a raise, D12 plus D12 plus D6 plus 4. On average rolls, that's going to be like 20 damage. Even when these guys have their obscene defenses up, they only maybe have 12 toughness, which means they're going to take 2 wounds from a single shot on average. And the problem is, and this is what happened to Jordan Callerman's group in the wildcards, right? Those bulls do so much damage so fast, right? And if they all hit on the first round, which they possibly could, and they all do a couple of wounds to everybody on the first round, then the players are operating at -2 or 1 or 3 to everything they do, depending on how many wounds they've taken, for the rest of the combat. And you get into a death spiral, right, um, where the characters keep getting worse because of the damage they're taking, which makes them take more damage, right? You take a wound, you're at -1 to everything, including your vigor rolls, to soak more wounds. And so I think that, I mean, this has the potential to go sideways or whatever. This has the potential to go very bad very fast for the party. I'm not sure I want to help them with that. Because again, they've been so it's been so easy for them to just take out even my elite bosses, basically, with very little challenge, that I'm like, okay, well, they haven't needed help so far, so they're on their own. Let's see how they do. It sort of reminds me of like my best friend when he was GMing, and he was just rolling crap for the whole combat. It was a bunch of gnolls, I think, that should have challenged us. We were like second or third level, and they should have challenged us, but it wasn't much of a challenge because they were just rolling crap. Like, he couldn't roll for them. He's rolling to hit, and he's rolling 4s and 6s, and like they just couldn't hit us. Or then he does damage, and he rolls like snake eyes on 2d6 damage, and he's like, "You've got to be kidding me!" So they had absolutely crap luck, and we were pretty much owning them. And the new girl, who wasn't that new. She'd played my whole campaign as a ranger in doing melee combat, so she should have remembered about attacks of opportunity. But she had her character, so like the bad guy was standing right here, and her character was in this hex, and she went to move over here, and he said, "Well, that's going to give him an attack of opportunity," and she was like, "Oh, that's right. Never mind. Can I change what I wanted to do?" And he said, "You know what? Actually, no. These guys have had such crap rolls. I'm going to let them do the attack of opportunity. I'm not going to let you take it back because their rolls have been so bad." Right? So the idea is, if you're not being challenged at all, I don't, for a long period of time, then when the actual challenge comes, I don't see the need for me to try to mitigate it. I don't want to TPK them, but and I was worried about it until the last battle that they fought, where they just so completely owned Mina Devlin and her witches. They completely owned them, really. I mean, it took 5 rounds, but they weren't in any danger during any of those 5 rounds. And I thought, well, if they're going to be just absolutely destroying my archvillains, essentially, right? Then when these Devil Bulls come at them, which is like fighting 4 elite bosses at once, I'm going to just let it happen because they've been cruising along so much. I don't see why I need to try and mitigate that. I don't want them to, so I was worried about a TPK, but I'm sitting there looking at this going, if these guys are doing this stuff to Mina Devlin and Helena Robards, who I purposely designed to be like incredibly abusive, then I don't think there's any chance they're going to get TPK'd by the Bulls. But if the Bulls get some lucky rolls in early on and they get good initiative, it could go bad. It could go south very quickly. And I think I'm going to let it. The only thing I have to figure out is what to do if I actually do wipe the party. Also, what to do if 1 or 2 characters die. I mean, that's going to partially be up to them, but do these players now, I mean, I know like the one player made up the ranger that she's got after her character from Coffin Rock was killed, and she likes the ranger, and she's been having fun with this ranger and everything, but like her first choice was to keep playing the other character. All right, so she made the ranger. The ranger's been with them so long now that character seems like the right character to be in this group at this point. She may not feel that way, but it does feel that way to me, right? And my best friend, his character survived, but he switched to his huckster from the Coffin Rock campaign after the blood drive, right? So they've made some changes to their characters, but these characters have been with them a long time now, right? And it's not the same thing as you're in a campaign D&D terms to make, because it's easy to understand. Everybody's like 15th level. Your character dies, and now you have to bring in a new 15th level character into an existing campaign and fit them into a story that they haven't been participating in at all. I don't know how that's going to work. Not sure. I feel like that potentially could not be workable. So it doesn't have to be a TPK, right? If those bulls kill 2 or 3 of the characters, the one character who's left isn't going to be able to do stuff on their own. So then what do? Do we continue the campaign with a bunch of new characters that this character doesn't know? Right? Let's say the ranger is left alive and all the other characters are dead. Even the idea of like, let's bring the old characters back, like my best friend's martial artist could come back, and where's Penelope? And other guys, the Blessed's gunslinger could come back, and the mad scientists. We want to go this way. The mad scientists. That players. What are you doing? That player's former characters. He's got 2. He was a witch, and then he played a. What was his other character? Oh, a gunslinger, right? So some of those guys could come back. That gunslinger's actually harrowed, So they could bring those guys back, but none of them know the ranger. So why would they be together? I mean, other than that we're going to force it to be because we want to keep playing the campaign. So I'm not really sure. I have the feeling that players are going to say we want to keep playing the campaign because we want to find out what happens. I don't know how that's going to work. We'll just have to see. But I don't actually expect them to TPK because, again, they've just done so well for every other major challenge. But this happened to Jordan Cave's Calaman. And I remember Jordan saying this when they were talking in the campfire or whatever it was at the end of the, I don't know, was it at the end of the campaign or the end of the season where those guys had TPK'd. And one of the viewers asked, "Did you expect a TPK?" Because this is an infamous encounter that happens at the heroic rank that often TPKs parties. And Jordan said, "Well, I knew that it often did, and I was aware of it, and I looked at the stats of the Bulls, and I thought the stats of the Bulls were pretty insane." But he said this posse had handled everything I'd thrown at them. Some of the most ridiculous, overpowered monsters and challenging situations and really hard dramatic tasks, and they had just handled everything without a problem. So he was like, yeah, I figured they could do this. And then when the first guy died, he was like, well, somebody died, okay. And then when the second person died, I didn't see this. I was listening to it while I was driving, so I wasn't watching it. But according to Jordan, Jordan said, I was panicking. And if you can look at my face, like during the session, you'll see that I was panicking because I had no idea what I was going to do if these guys all wiped. And now that 2 of them were dead and there were still 4 bulls up, I didn't think they could win, right? This is the problem with the bulls. If the party maintains the lead or parity with the bulls, 1-to-1 going down, you might survive. But if the bulls take somebody down and then 2 of them gang up on somebody and take another person down, and now it's 4-on-2, now you're in big trouble. So I don't know what's going to happen, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. They have higher toughness than anything these guys have faced before. They don't have any particular weaknesses. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the players do when they say do 15 damage and I say it just bounces off, right? Or 18 damage and I say it just bounces off, right? Or they do 21 damage and I say, well, it's shaken, and they're like, wait, what? 21 damage just shook it, right? That, as a player of Savage Worlds, when you do that much damage and it's just shaken, that's a pretty scary moment. So I don't know how they're going to do against that and what they're going to do to handle it. And as I said, it depends on luck, right? If they roll high, they do 19 damage and it does nothing in the very first round, the very first person who drew an ace. So then I'm going to shoot this thing with my conviction on, or shoot this thing, right? And they don't have their conviction on and they roll well and they open end on one of the dice and they get a 17 and I go, it bounces off. All the other players are going to go, oh crap, we're going to turn on conviction, right? But if the first guy to shoot shoots and rolls 9 damage and re-rolls it with a Benny and rolls 7 and says, okay, I'll keep the 9, and I go, well, it doesn't do anything, it bounces off, that won't trigger them because all of them have like 9, 10, 11 toughness anyway with their spells running. So they'll just figure it's about equal, 4 on 4. Same thing with the bulls. If the bulls like attack and don't do a lot of damage, they might not freak out, although they will see the d12s rolling. So if they notice that, they might be like, oh crap, it's d12s, right? But if the couple of them go and they roll low and it doesn't occur to them to turn on the conviction, and then a bull goes and does like 5 wounds, and you don't, and even with conviction, you can only soak one of them, and so you go down and you're making ear and death saves, that could lead to a lot of trouble before they get a chance to realize, oh, these things are nasty, we had better convict, right? Now, I don't know. These guys tend to turn it on. One of them, I can't remember which one, is it my best friend, had no conviction. Because I said, you guys can use conviction if you want. I think you all have it. And I think it was my best friend was like, I don't have it because he's used it already, right? And they're pretty quick to use it. If they think this is going to be a hard fight, they're like, let's just turn on our conviction. I don't know if they're going to realize, other than the ranger who will probably recognize the bulls, I don't know if they're going to realize this is dangerous. This is probably the most dangerous fight you've had because it's 4 wild cards, and I don't know if they faced 3 wild cards in the last battle and they had no problem with it. So they might go like, we faced 3 or 4 wild cards before, it's not a big deal. They're just bulls. What can they do? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Anyway, I think we're going to stop there, guys, and until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes soloing the Stalker.